Hello, everyone, and welcome to Amateur Hour, the show where a bunch of unprofessionals pretend to be professional. I'm Alcatabra. I'm your Galactic Blame, Triple M, and J. Say hello, guys.
Hello.
Hey. Hi.
And today we are here to discuss the Lego Batman movie and the Batman, the human Batman movie. I don't know, whatever.
The new one, the Batman movie.
The Batman, yes. But yeah, today we're just going to go over those two movies because, the Batman is recent enough, and the Lego Batman movie, oddly enough, I think has enough interesting ties to this movie in ways that we'll get into. So I figured they would be good enough to pair for discussion. And yeah, that will be the kind of basis for today's analytical analysis and whatnot. So, yeah, very redundant, very smart sounding. I told you we're unprofessional. But let me make this clear from the start. So, going into this, I don't know about the rest of y'all, but for me at least, I love superheroes, the whole idea of people in costumes, flying around, beating up bad guys, whatever. But I'm personally sick of seeing the same set of, mainstream heroes get recycled and rebooted over and over and over again, from Spider-Man to Superman to especially Batman. We have seen more or less everything that can be done with these characters. We have seen the same things done specifically multiple times, even very close to one another. And like I said, Batman's probably the most evident of that. He now more than ever, Batman and his whole surrounding mythos of Gotham City and whatnot is more prominent than it's ever been. We literally have two Batmans showing up in the new Flash movie. There's a Joker origin film that came out, and it's also getting a sequel, and Batman's heavily involved in both. Gotham Knights is coming out as a game and a TV show, if I'm correct.
Hey, Gotham Knights looks good as a game.
Okay. And then there's the Batgirl movie.
I'll say that. The game looks good.
Yeah, fair enough. There's a Batgirl movie, which will feature Batman, at least according to, behind-the-scene leaks. Then there's the new Suicide Squad game, which will probably feature him. It's set in the Arkham world and, based on Arkham Knight. That's kind of up in the air, but, it'll probably feature Batman. There's the League of Super Pet movie, which has, Keanu Reeves voicing Batman, which is... I'm 50-50 on. There's an upcoming animated series from the people behind Batman, the animated series, which love that show. But it's an origin film. It's an origin cartoon about Batman again.
Mm-hmm.
Of all the it's not only a new Batman thing, but it's a Batman origin, which just I love y'all and what y'all did for Batman the animated series, but please no.
It's very indicative. Oh, sorry. Of course. Sorry. Of course, I'll let you finish.
Of course, the movie that we're discussing today, The Batman, and its many spin-offs that are coming from it. So, as you can see, there's Batman everywhere you look. That's kind of the point.
And you, as the quote-unquote comic reader of this group, the guy who goes to the comic book shop as often as he can, DC's also just absolutely pushing Batman out right now.
Yeah, I was about to say, I'm approaching this from a normie perspective. I don't even want to know what's going on in the comic book scene.
It is so frustrating because once a year, DC has decided to do this thing where they will have fans vote in a tournament, where they'll drop a bunch of story ideas and they'll have fans vote in a tournament based on what we want to read for stories like Green Lantern or Constantine, Black Canary. And we're always no, just if you had the ideas, just write all the stories because we'll buy all the stories. Because there's 80 different Batman books out right now. So it's really frustrating. And that being said, I like the movie, but Batman and Spider-Man, I would say, are the two most oversaturated superheroes in any medium ever.
Much. And technically Superman, but not because he's getting media. It's more so just everyone knows the Superman archetype. But yeah, Batman. I was about to say
Superman fans are struggling.
Yeah, Superman fans are not eating very well right now. But either way, now that's just me. I don't know the rest of y'all, how y'all approach this Batman mythos, I guess.
Yeah, no, I'm also from a pretty normie perspective. I didn't even really grow up with any of the Batman movies for the most part. I've only read literally the only Batman comic I've ever read was probably like The Killing Joke, and I played a couple of the Arkham games, but that's probably like the most I have outside of like films and everything. So I am also approaching it from the normie perspective, so I try and like generally analyze any like Batman media in like film or television as it is, you know, film and television. So like that's kind of where my critique comes from, for the most part, since I just don't have a lot of knowledge about the source material. Not that I think it really matters too much when you're making a movie, because it's like an entirely different skill set that's required there.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, so that's like my background with the Batman mythos, I guess.
I totally agree with the whole oversaturation of like a lot of the superheroes, but I know for a fact I like when they do a reboot or like a retelling that introduces something new that we haven't seen before, like in the Lego Batman movie. That's a really good, like newer take on the traditional Batman formula, I think.
Okay. But yeah, I mean, with all that being said, now like we'll just kind of get into the two movies, because I say all this to say that these two movies, the Lego Batman movie and the Batman, were both fighting like a very uphill battle with me personally. Like, because I was like, I've seen this character again and again and again. I'm kind of sick of it, so you're gonna have to like do something special to actually hold my attention. And I will say, both films in their own ways did something special to hold my attention.
They're both very good.
Yeah, so we'll get into those, especially like mainly for like a big thematic through line that both of them, in their own odd, unique way, I think both of them share a very important thematic through line, whether or not people really realize it. But we'll get to that like later on. And yeah, I guess we'll just go ahead and start by discussing the Lego Batman movie, if we're all ready. So yeah, right out the back, I love this movie. I love this movie.
Oh yeah.
Love it.
It's really good.
Yeah, like, this is literally one of my, like, top 10 favorite movies of all time, which is, like, saying something, because, again, it's a Batman movie. So...
Not only that, it's a Lego Batman movie.
Well, you say that, but I love Lego. That's probably where the top 10 part comes from. Like,
I do want to say it is very sad what happened to the Lego movie universe. Because, like...
Yeah,
they were very creatively ingenious films. Like the whole thematic through line of the Lego movie itself and all of that subtext was something really cool to see in a kids movie, as well as the fact that it's just so fun to watch.
Yeah. And
then you get the Lego Batman movie, which of course is pretty much the best one out of all of them.
Yeah,
a lot of people would disagree with me.
No, I agree.
Yeah. But then I think what buried these movies, other than, not politics, corporate, BS, would definitely be the quote-unquote failure of Ninjago and Lego Movie 2.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
Because they didn't do too hot.
Lego Movie 2 was actually, like, surprisingly still charming in its own way. And Lego Ninjago, while I hate on it a lot, I still have a soft spot for it. Even though I think it has some flaws. But either way... Yeah.
Wasn't that a bomb because of like COVID and everything?
I don't think so.
I can't remember when it was.
Movie,
Me too.
Lego in 2017, and that really bombed because it didn't relate to the show, which everyone was familiar with.
Yeah.
So people who didn't know what it was wouldn't go, and people who did know what it was didn't want to go because it wasn't the same continuity of characters that they loved. So it just completely flopped, except for people who, wanted to watch the Lego.
I think from what I remember, I feel like it was marketed really badly too. Like, I feel like there just wasn't as much marketing as there was for the first one. Like, the first one, like, everyone... I think a lot of the reason why everyone was talking about it is they're like, oh my god, this is going to be terrible. But then it ended up being great, and then everyone's like, you need to go see the Lego movie, and then there was the Oscar snub, and everybody was mad about that. But, like, yeah, I from what I remember, like, I remember seeing trailers in like the theaters, but like there wasn't like an insane like ad campaign going on.
Yeah,
which I think kind of
all the trailers they released made the movie look didn't look as good as the first one just from the trailers. But then I actually forked over the money and went to go see it, and I'm like, wow, that was actually almost as good as the first one.
Yeah.
So it was just a thing with the marketing, really.
Yeah, so I guess they just didn't market it enough, and when they did, it's like they didn't present it correctly.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, no, like, so one of my favorite parts about, like, kind of the Lego Batman movie, it's kind of the same with the Lego movie, but, like, I'm going to talk about specifically the Lego Batman movie, is I want to talk about the humor for a second, like, go into that really quickly, because on the surface, it seems like
Juvenile.
it seems like it's too manic, you know, and that's like a lot of like modern animation for like I'm not going to say kids, I don't like saying that word, is family stuff, is it's, you know, it's derogatory towards the animation genre, but so I just feel like it's so manic, but it's manic in a perfect way, and I feel like it works the best for the Lego movie and the Lego Batman movie because of the themes that it goes into. The humor works for the Lego Batman movie because it's kind of, this is like I'm not sure if this is an angle I've ever heard anybody say, but it's almost like a satire of a Batman movie. But like,
it's funny you say that because that's exactly what I was gonna get into later.
Yeah, no, it's a satire, but it's not. It's like a love letter satire. It's not a cynical satire.
Yeah,
it's like poking fun at you know, all the tropes and everything, but it does it in like a loving way, and it respects its source material. Like you can clearly tell that the people who wrote this movie and made this movie really fucking like Batman.
Yeah. The entire movie is basically like in
100%. They're not just like the humor and like the inside jokes and stuff, because, you know, I mean, technically you could, you know, look that stuff up, but like, I mean, like the essential like characters and everything. But yeah, I don't know. It's just, it seems like it doesn't work and it seems like it's too kiddie, but it really works here. Yeah. And and they're so off. Like they just, it's so like quick-witted and so fast-paced, which is like some of my favorite kind of dialogue, but like it's so quick-witted and so fast-paced, so even if there is a joke that kind of like falls flat, like they're already on to the next one anyway, so it doesn't even matter. So it's just like the pacing is just like it's this movie has great pacing too, which I think is part of the humor, is like part of the reason why it works so well. But yeah, I mean, like it's cool to see that, because like, you know, some people shoot down like family movies because of like the juvenile humor sometimes, but I think sometimes it works if it's like I don't know, it's a fine tightrope to walk. But the Lego movie kind of worked too because of its themes also, but I won't go into that because that's not what we're talking about. But I feel like the humor works really well here, and I think it's probably one of the best parts of the movie.
Yeah, I definitely agree like where you're coming from, like with humor and whatnot. Like I think it balanced this manic tone surprisingly well. Like it's very hard to keep that up, but they surprisingly managed to keep it going and keep laying on like joke after joke after joke that landed very well. And the humor is a good mix of like just like general humor as well as sort of like fanboy humor. Like there's like, this movie is loaded to the brim with Easter eggs and callbacks and stuff, but it's not done in a way that would like take away. Like there are times where a movie will only rely on like fan service and Easter eggs, so if you aren't in the loop, you just like kind of feel like you're just sitting there. But here, like, the people who get the Easter eggs will enjoy it, and if you don't, then it's still just like a funny joke on its own and whatnot. So I think that was like a good, well balanced. Like I remember at the beginning where they're talking about like Joker's past plans, like the two boats and the parade and the Prince music. I don't think I'd seen like the old Batman movies yet, so I just thought the joke was, oh, Joker just has a bunch of plans and Batman always foils them. That's funny. But then when I actually like watched the other movies, I was like, oh, that was like a callback to Batman 89 and The Dark Knight. That's even more funny now. Like that's a good balance, I think, of how to handle Easter eggs and just general comedy.
Yeah.
But other than that, like for the whole like fan servicey thing, I'll get into more like the meta commentary and satire angle that Galactic Blame brought up a little later. What I do want to say is that like this movie did really just take like a lot of my gripes about Batman and make them really work. In addition, like I love it for like being Lego, because I think Legos are awesome. I don't care if they're for kids, like everyone can enjoy Lego, and they like bring out my inner child. I think the animation's awesome. I think the writing's awesome. The comedy's awesome. Like it's just a well mixed blend of everything it needs to be. I want to get into visuals just real quick because while like we're gonna dive into like cinematography and stuff with the Batman more, that's really what that movie shines for. But this one, I still think its quote unquote cinematography like really stands out. Like not even just like how the characters are animated, but how they animated like environments and shot the characters in those environments. Like it's very well done. I think like this and Into the Spider-Verse are the only movies that I really like considered framing for an animated movie. And Toy Story 4. Like those are the 3 movies that I can think of in recent memory that really made me think of like animated framing, like lighting, textures, effects, and whatnot to bring out like character models. Because most people obviously think of cinematography and framing from a live action standpoint, right? But there's a lot that still goes into that with animation, and I think this movie
they'll bring in like
out.
a lot of animated movies will bring in like cinematographers to give their guidance on like how shots and everything work, because it's like a lot of it is on the animators and on like the rigging and everything and like placing your cameras, but like they still aren't cinematographers. So like if especially with these bigger budget movies is that if you really want to get that cinematic quality, then like they'll bring in a cinematographer. Like sometimes like I think like Rise of the Guardians brought in like Roger Deakins and stuff. Like they'll get like legit people on board. I'm not sure if that's the case here, but it's not uncommon.
But yeah, I definitely really just liked how it liked.
Weird to hear Roger's name in a discussion about an animated movie.
Honestly. But like I really did like just how the environments looked. I like definitely the beginning of the movie, I think, is probably the strongest point. Like that the movie, now I'm not even just talking about like the running gag of Batman narrating over the like logos, but like the plane scene and Joker's whole heist. Like I really just love how that whole scene looks from all the like Gotham looks like this like fog infested chaotic wasteland. Like the effects that they use on lights of the helicopters for the police and whatnot, it all just really stands out. And it really helps exemplify like the countless vehicles and characters that are in the scene. Like I don't know how else to explain it. It just like looks like a technical wonderland to me. And I'll always go back and like rewatch even just like the first scene at least, because I really like how they put together different colors and fog effects and whatnot to make it. Yeah, like I said, it's only like second to like Spider-Verse for me. In fact, there are a couple shots in this movie that I actually kind of prefer over Spider-Verse for their own separate reasons. And the behind the scenes staff, I was watching some like behind the scenes stuff for this movie. They talked about like how they would purposely frame like shots far away, like in the Lego world, as opposed to using too many close-ups, because they really wanted to show off just how expansive this world is and like how small the figures are in scale. Which brings me to my next point. I guess like the characters not in terms of how they're written, but characters in terms of like them as characters, like the models, their designs and whatnot. I really just love how the characters look in this movie and just how the vehicles, the molds and everything looks. And that's kind of the advantage the Lego movies have, because they feature like actual toys. Like just like Toy Story, the movie will feature actual merchandise and like really be able to show it off through the movie, but not in a way that it feels like it's telling you to buy their product. But they definitely go all out, like in all these Lego movies, especially like this one. And all the characters in their own ways like look very unique. For Batman, they kind of just went with like the standard all black suit Batman that they've been using for most like Lego Batman sets, but they gave him like an actual belt piece. I'm gonna get really geeky about toys for a second now. I don't know if anyone pays attention to like the way Legos are designed nowadays, but I do. And so like comparing them to like this movie really like stood out for me. Like they gave Batman like an actual outside belt piece, which I hadn't really thought about, but that was kind of cool. In exchange, there's stuff like Joker's design. I just love like his overcoat. I love his spiked up hair. I like how he has like oddly drawn like spiky teeth that almost look like a kid drew it, which kind of adds to the whole like child imagination theme to this. What else? I like how Killer Croc literally just has a crocodile head. Like they just took like the Lego animal crocodile head and just stuck it on top of a big figure's body and called it a day, and that's like the funniest thing to me. I like that.
They kind of did something.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, you're good.
No, continue.
Oh, I was gonna say they kind of did something unique with Robin specifically. Like most Legos and just in anything, Robin just has like just the domino mask But in this, he has like huge goggles.
Yeah.
because Dick Grayson wears the glasses, and it totally plays into the character, played by Michael Cera, which he's like just a total nerd and like a child.
Yeah.
And
it captures that innocence.
Yeah, like the giant cute baby eyes through the goggles. That was just surprisingly clever look.
It's a good character design decision.
Mm-hmm.
And then and that just expresses that they overdo the innocence, like you were saying, how it's satire of other things. Like Robin is, he's a child, so they made him really childish in this.
Yeah,
and that is, expressed through the design of Robin specifically with the glasses and like the sparkly cape, and I really like that Robin design, and I like how they made a new Lego mold for it in real life, just like with the removable belt piece.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, they made a lot of all kinds of like crazy unique molds just for this movie. Like I like how Clayface is literally just made of like a bunch of studs. Like that was like, because obviously
Clayface dude, that set.
Yeah, that's
not to interrupt, but that set was so good.
Honestly, I love how Clayface is designed.
I miss the sets that came out with this movie. I remember one night I was hanging out with Jay, and we built like the entire Ultimate Batmobile from the third act.
Yeah, where it splits
such a great set.
Yeah, that one's awesome.
All the sets for this are amazing.
Logan, you got the Egghead one. They made so many, the movie in general just featured so many really unique designs for everything. Like with they gave characters that don't normally have vehicles. Like Egghead was just in a giant egg that shot eggs. It's just
and it was so funny.
Everything. It's awesome.
Yeah. They really went out in the movie's production as well as just the marketing for the movie with just how they designed so many characters and really committed to it. I'm surprised they gave all the no-name villain characters Condiment King, Orca. And
I still have my Condiment King figure.
Yes,
he is sitting behind me on my desk.
That is amazing. I was like, oh, they actually made figures for all these characters. That's amazing. But yeah. I just loved all the aesthetic for everyone. This is probably my favorite Lego Harley Quinn design for this movie. And I already mentioned Killer Croc. Batgirl, they took the classic purple and yellow suit and actually made it really work. And speaking of the Bat people, her and Batman both have glowing eyes over their mask, which I thought was an interesting detail. The eyes are just kind of wide eyes on the typical mask, but here having them glow just kind of really stood out for the movie. Robin, we already talked about his giant adorable eyes. I thought Robin's design was kind of over a little not too wacky, but it worked for the movie. They were going for an innocent vibe, so I was fine with it. But yeah, and then obviously the vehicles. There's vehicles for everyone. Batman specifically has countless all kinds of uniquely designed vehicles. How the Batman.
Don't forget his suits. Don't forget his suits. He's got all those
kinds
suits.
of costumes that were that was a great opportunity to show off fan service for different suits. A lot of them are clever puns, too, just random clever puns that they made.
There's one where he has a giant sword and it's Excalibat.
Yeah, I noticed that one. That was really funny to me. But yeah, and obviously his first vehicles. I like how Batman's Batmobile is typically either a long over the top van or a tank. And in this movie, it's kind of both. It has big tank wheels and a long over this top van design. And I was like, that's cool. But yeah. Anyways, I mentioned with the bat suits, there's all kinds of funny suits the Batriot or Batriot, and all kinds of stuff like that. So I thought that was clever, just how they went all in with that. But anyways, that's enough fanboying. We have to actually get to the movie.
Yeah, let's talk about the movie itself.
Either way, on the note of characters, I bring all this up because the movie has a lot of characters, which is kind of a detriment at times because a lot of them don't really get focus. They're just kind of there. I do think that they did come back into play uniquely. I thought the villains would just show up for the opening scene and then it would just focus on Joker. But they do actually come into play with helping the characters at the end. So that was pretty cool. But even so, most of them just get one or two lines, if any at all, which was just a little underwhelming for them.
I want more Riddler. I want more goofy Riddler. It's all I want from
Riddler,
Batman media.
All Riddler said was riddle me this, what just happened? And then he was just kind of there.
Yeah. A cool connection is that Zoe Kravitz has 2 lines as Catwoman, in the Lego Batman movie, and then she's
Ooh.
Catwoman in the Batman.
Yeah, I was gonna get to that
Yeah.
in like the fun facts, but yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
And now there's a lot of just like fun behind the scenes stuff with the voice acting. Random tidbit, but Voldemort's voice actor or Voldemort's actor from the Harry Potter movies voices Alfred, but not Voldemort in this movie. That just kind of stood out to me.
Oh, Ralph
Yeah.
Fiennes.
Yeah, I was like,
Ray Fiennes,
I
yeah.
was like, they have him on set, but they didn't have him voice Voldemort. Okay,
He didn't want to. He didn't feel like it.
Yeah, that could have been
Another
like, a
cool
funny-
thing is that you know. Another cool thing is that Voldemort is in the Lego Batman movie.
Yeah. Oh, we'll
is
get to
cool.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
For anyone listening,
Fuck you,
who
Warner
hasn't-
Brothers.
for anyone listening who just heard us, like anyone who hasn't seen the movie and just heard us mention Voldemort in a Batman movie, we'll get to that. But yeah. Either way, like I said, like there being a lot of characters kind of makes a lot of them kind of fade into the background, which like it's still cool from a marketing perspective, but it would have been nice for most of them to do more. And my last fun fact about characters is that Billy D. Williams voices Two-Face in this movie because he played Two-Face in Batman '89, or he played Harvey Dent.
Well, he
And then
Played-
he was
he played Harvey
recast.
Dent.
And then he was recast by Tommy Lee Jones when he became Two-Face in Batman Forever. So we never got to see.
Harvey Two-Face.
Yeah, we
It
never.
was
got to
Harvey
see-
Two-Face,
Yeah.
not Harvey Dent. So it wasn't a
Harvey
recast.
Two-Face. Sorry.
It was a completely separate character.
He
Yeah.
just happened to have a similar job and name. Yes, but yeah, we never got to see Billy D. Williams as Two-Face. So this movie was kind of a revival of that concept, which I thought was cool. And also, I was reading some behind-the-scenes stuff, and I saw like concept art in which they actually had planned to use Tommy Lee Jones as the basis for Lego Two-Face in this movie. So we could have had Lego Harvey Two-Face, but we didn't. Oh well. I think his suit would have
What could
looked
have
funny.
been?
Yeah, I think his suit would have looked hilarious on a minifigure. But anyways, like I said, Galactic Blame mentioned comedic pacing earlier, like how the movie's handling this comedy, and this kind of goes hand in hand with the characters. Like, it is very fast-paced, and I think it works well for comedy, but the only other detriment is that it kind of doesn't let us sit in the world or with the characters too much, because this world looks amazing. Like, this whole world, it's not actual Lego bricks, but the simulated Lego bricks they used to make everything all look super mesmerizing, but they kind of just brush past everything because of how fast-paced the comedy and action has to go, so you don't really get to sit on just, like, how astounding the world and environment looks, which I just think is kind of a shame from a technical perspective, but it's whatever from a story perspective. Either way, like I mentioned, the world is just kind of like this big simulated world, and I absolutely love it. I like how everything in its own way pays homage to Batman. Like the Batcave is basically just filled with Batman memorabilia from the past, from classic Batmobiles.
And it's huge.
Yeah,
It's
from classic
big.
Batmobiles to classic Batsuits to like the Bat Shark repellent from the old school Adam West show, which actually does come into play in the story, which is like the funniest thing ever. Wayne Manor looks cool. Like the Fortress of Solitude they even go to at one point. Like there's just all kinds of cool memorabilia throughout the universe that they really pay homage to. And I think it's cool how they made their own custom Lego world for it. But enough about that, the stories. The whole basis of this movie's story is basically a critique on Batman. From the angle that Batman is closed off and too much of a loner. And that the lesson that he has to learn in the movie is, to open himself up to others. Because, like, from the perspective of Bruce Wayne, obviously Bruce is too afraid of getting close to people after he lost his parents, so he doesn't try to, like, open up to other family members. And from the perspective of Batman, he takes the whole city into his own hands when he needs other people to help him, like, solve things. He can't do everything on his own. And so he kind of learns that through Robin. Like, the movie is a semi-origin, at least for Robin. Like, it's not like a Batman origin. It just kind of tells how Robin came into the fray, as well as Batgirl. Like, Dick Grayson is just kind of a kid who, through sheer, like, coincidence, ends up getting adopted by Bruce Wayne. And then he happens to have use of him for, like, his mission. So he kind of lets him tag along. And I think that their dynamic, like, really works well. Because, like, at least in the Batman mythos I've seen, the whole dynamic of Batman and Robin is Batman's the dark, brooding one. And Robin's the more uplifting, hopeful type. And they kind of cancel each other out, or at least balance each other out. And that's definitely evident in this movie, as Batman's a full-on, edgy loner. And Robin's just, like, this optimistic, loving child who just wants his affection.
Upbeat, I think is
Upbeat, yeah.
the word you were looking for.
Yeah. And I think that they really balance each other out there. As well as Batgirl, who is kind of just like, who comes into the fray and actually like addresses the issues with how like Gotham's handling, because like at least in this continuity, Batman hasn't like caught they say he hasn't like caught the criminals, or more like, which I assume is kind of the child-friendly way of saying he hasn't killed them. Because, you know, a common critique of Batman mythos is, like, the reason Joker and Riddler and all them keep attacking is because Batman won't kill them, but they can't literally just, like, say that in a kid's movie, so they use the word caught instead. But
also, in the movie, he does, like, in the film, he actually never captures them. He always stops them and then just leaves.
Yeah.
He never, like, bothers actually arresting them.
Yeah, they kind of just, like, run away or whatever, and that's kind of it. Which I thought was an interesting angle to approach from, because, like, obviously the criticism here is crime is still on the rise in Gotham City, even though Batman's here, so we got to do something different. Barbara's solution is to have Batman team up with the police force, which she doesn't want to do. And in a way, she doesn't exactly get her way, but she joins Batman, and I'm not sure how they would have fleshed that out more, maybe in a sequel that never happened, but we'll get to that later. But yeah, that's kind of like the whole criticism is that on Batman's angle, he needs to open up more, but also as a character, him simply taking crime into his own hands isn't enough. Other things that they kind of address are like his relationship with the Joker, which I think this is the best movie to do it, because they literally like make it a romantic relationship. Like their whole like they have a fiendship instead of a friendship. Where Joker's obsessed with being like Batman's greatest enemy, and Batman's like, no, I don't care about you. And it surprisingly made you like feel like for the Joker, because like obviously Joker's whole like gimmick in like mythos is that he treats this whole crime thing as a game. He likes to keep causing harm and like causing chaos so that Batman will fight him because he loves the attention. And they have this endless dynamic because Batman doesn't want to kill him and Joker doesn't want to stop doing what he's doing. And this movie kind of emphasizes...
I'm imagining Lego Batman just popping Joker's head off. Like, and then that's it. That's the movie.
It's like the Lego video games where you punch them and they break into pieces.
And he drops a couple studs.
He just drops
a couple studs. Yeah.
He finally kills the Joker. It would have been funny. Like it's like you have the Dark Knight Returns comic where Joker like twists his neck and then he just pops apart and studs fall out. But anyway,
Jesus
back on track. Back on track. Point is that like Joker literally and him literally have this whole like relationship where Joker is like causing crime and everything because he likes Batman fighting him. But when Batman finally like is all like, I work alone, I don't care about anyone, that actually like gets to him. And that kind of drives the plot of this movie. Joker wants to do everything in his power to act like he's better than Batman and make him like feel sorry for not being there for him. So I thought it was an interesting angle to show that Batman not only has to open himself up to his friends, but also his enemies. This just goes to show how he's destructive to literally everyone in his life. But yeah, either way, that kind of ties into the fact that Joker brings in villains from other franchises. And that, which completely caught me off guard watching the movie. Like, you've got the Wicked Witch of the West. Yeah, you've got Godzilla, the Wicked Witch of the West, Sauron, Agent Smith, King Kong. Like, just all of these.
It's all very, very coincidentally, franchises that Warner Brothers has some kind of hand in.
Yeah. Like, I was like, oh, we're, like, actually, like, doing this. And they all just kind of show up and start wreaking havoc, which, this kind of concept, you know, the fan service concept of dropping in all their IPs, often has the risk of, like, falling apart. But, you know, the movie, like everything else it does, handles it pretty well. The characters aren't, like, on the nose like fan service. They're just, like, kind of there. And if you don't know them, then it still works. Like, they're still just, like, kind of scary monsters for the bad guys to fight. Because I doubt most kids are going to recognize, like, Agent Smith or Sauron.
Yeah, I didn't recognize Agent Smith when I first saw the movie. I hadn't seen The Matrix before then.
Yeah. But, like, even so, like, it still works because you have, like, menacing characters to face here. Like, the Lego movie does the same thing. You have a lot of classic IPs, but if you don't recognize them, then you're not losing anything. Because that movie kind of focuses on its own characters. And the same's here. They're kind of just, like, you can just pass them off as any of the other random bad guys, like Condiment King or King Tut that Batman will fight. But yeah, and I think I said King Tut. I meant to say that. I said King Tuck. Anyways. Either way, I think that it was handled, like, pretty well. That's just kind of my point. And that they actually made for some very fun fights. Like, them having to find a way to take out Sauron because he was literally, like, scoping them out. That was clever. King Kong was a very cool Lego mold, and just like all around, just a bunch of fun fights there. But what else? Either way,
I mean, I guess we should talk about the story, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Like I mentioned, the whole like basis of the film is, Batman has to learn to open himself up to others, and Joker is trying to find a way to make Batman appreciate him again, even if he has to destroy the whole city to do it. And I think that the movie like takes every opportunity it can to show the importance of teamwork and family and whatnot. That's even emphasized like in the ending with how Gotham like falls, literally is like being torn apart, and so all the characters have to come together to like stitch it together, which is like the best way to emphasize that theme in the most like charmingly dorky way possible.
I also like that canonically in the Lego Movie universe, the city or wherever they're living is held together by like table legs.
Yeah, that's actually clever. But yeah, like that's part of the whole like toy imagination gimmick that they really emphasized. And they even like had
and in this movie, that whole I found it weird that in this movie that whole question is it's called into question. Sorry, is like, okay, is this happening in a kid's imagination or is this just a story that's happening, right?
As far as
because in Lego Movie, it's very clearly like, oh yeah, this is happening on a table, a kid's playing with toys, but like here, it feels like it's kind of up to interpretation.
As far as I can tell, it still is, because, this is still part of the Lego Movie universe. They even reference in Lego Movie 2 that Batman was off doing the Lego Batman movie, so it is still part of that mythos. They just don't openly address it as much as they need to, which I think would be interesting.
It's really heavily implied. It's because, like, they have, like you said, with the city being on table legs, and also it's kind of like, from, like, the child's perspective who's playing with them, he gets bored with doing the same thing over and over, so he goes and finds, like, Sauron and Voldemort, and is like, haha, Batman can fight them now. How about that?
Yeah, like, that actually makes sense. Yeah, that's, like, something
it makes total sense for, like, child brain,
Yeah, that's, like, perfect for a kid's imagination. He would just get whatever toys he wants, regardless of if they're from the same canon, and I really like that. But, yeah. Either way, there was the one angle that confused me with this movie was Batman having a crush on Barbara. That's always been weird to me.
That is something that DC has pushed several times on different occasions, and it's just a thing that a lot of Batman fans are used to. It's like every now and then it'll happen. And it's
times, I feel like it's honestly not as weird in this one because Barbara is like a 30-year-old. She is the commissioner. Yeah, she's not 18. Just becoming Batgirl. She's an adult. He's an adult.
So,
it's more okay in this than like in The Killing Joke, the animated one.
Yeah, even so, like if anything, the movie is critiquing that angle of Batman because they end up not together, and Batman explicitly calls her a platonic girl who's just a friend. Like they explicitly shut down any chance of that, and that almost felt like deliberate. Like on the part of the DC mythos, like they're being like, yeah, any of you who are here for this,
like like Batman '89, Batman Returns, The Dark Knight, all those. Anyone where he has like a love interest, they're just critiquing those straight up.
Yeah, pretty much just like how the girl will initially fall for him and whatnot. But yeah, I thought it was just kind of interesting how they do like end up just officially working together rather than being like just a couple. But other than that, like I said, we already went over like the whole multiverse thing that happens partway through. Any other like major thoughts so far, I guess?
No.
It's like I saw this movie not in the theaters, not because I didn't think it was good. I don't know. I was like, okay, this just seems like it's geared more towards Batman fans, which I mean, it clearly is a love letter towards that, but like you can get just as much enjoyment out of it if you've read every single damn Batman comic as you can if you don't know anything about Batman. It's just a good story and it's just a good movie. It's just written well.
Yeah.
So, and that's like a really hard thing to do. And so, they did a great job at that. At not alienating people. So you can go like, oh, that's a funny thing, but then it's not even always like Batman jokes. Like, isn't I remember the first like few minutes there was just so much stuff going on, but then I would like catch like, this is Aaron McGuffin, and then I was
Yeah.
like, oh my! I was like, this is.
I think this movie has my favorite joke in an animated like family film and it's obviously the easiest one to catch, but it's just so funny. Where Dick is like, my name's Richard, but kids at the orphanage call me Dick, and he goes, well, children can be cruel. And it's so funny. Like,
That was funny.
and I remember in the theater, it made me spit out my drink.
Yeah.
It was
I think
just,
that's
it's
the
very
only
good.
time. I think that's the only time they've like addressed the idea of having the name Dick, like for him. But yeah, that was funny. Either way, one little detail I wanted to bring up, I forgot to bring up earlier, is like I like that Batman like pretty much never wants to take his mask off. Like even when he's like off duty, just like in his house, like he just
Yeah,
keeps
and
the
like the
mask on.
robe and everything.
Yeah, like he'll still keep the mask on. Like it just represents like how attached he is like to this.
Well, and that's kind of one of the ties to the next movie we're going to discuss, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not segueing yet, but it is a funnier, more lighthearted way of examining how obsessed with this life Bruce
Yeah.
is.
And,
Yeah.
Yeah, Alfred wants him to take it off, and then he's like, no, like flipping
Yeah.
He's
around
like
the
a
car
child.
like
Yeah.
a child. Yeah, like a
I
literal
do
child.
I do like how childish they
Yeah.
portrayed him in this movie.
It was great because it's just kind of it's poking fun at the fact that like in comics and other things, Batman is like, yeah, Batman is his true self, and it's super serious, and then this is just like, I don't wanna. It's good.
Yeah, I do like that. I like even when he's like going to a party where he has to be in public, Alfred has to tell him to take it off, and he's like, fine. Like that just really represents how attached he is to it, and it's also like just a clever play on the whole Batman is his true face like line from movies and whatnot.
Which, by the way, if you know anything about Batman, that whole Bruce Wayne is the mask is the stupidest thing.
Damn, roasting the Batman.
But I think it's such a well. I mean, I know a lot of Batman fans who also think the whole Bruce Wayne is just a persona. Yeah, is such a stupid thing.
It depends on which angle you're getting from. Like, I know what I got Batman from was like Batman Beyond. Like, everyone keeps quoting the clip where he's like, in like this voice that was trying to brainwash me kept calling me Bruce, but in my head, that's not what I call myself. And the implication is that in his mind, he calls himself Batman. But yeah, and obviously the Dark Knight. I think Batman Begins really solidified that for people. Like when Rachel talks to him at the end about how Batman is his true face. But yeah, that's for like the poetic super edgelord fans, I guess. I don't know. Either way, what am I looking for?
Sounds like a good segue.
Yeah, I mean,
It
I guess
does
that's
sound like
pretty
a good
much
segue.
that's pretty much everything I have to cover for this movie, except one last thing. We already mentioned the whole IP thing. Like, you know, Lego had a whole IP issue with like Universal, if I'm correct, which caused them to lose like the rights to keep producing like new Lego movies like theatrically.
Was it Universal or was it Warner Brothers?
It might. I mean, Warner Brothers owns Lego. I think it was.
Oh yeah, that's what I meant. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think Lionsgate bought the rights to produce Lego movies or something.
and,
Something like that.
Yeah, something because of that whole like legal stuff.
Yeah.
They can't like use
So-
like Warner Brothers
yeah.
IPs, so no more like Lego Batman movie 2. And they already revealed like the plans for Lego Batman movie 2 would have been to focus on like Batman working with the Justice League or whatnot because they're kind of like in the background of the
That would have been
movie.
awesome.
But yeah, that would have been really cool.
Yeah, the Justice League are in this, and there's a ton of them.
Yeah,
It's
they referenced from like
They have
big
like the
members.
Super Friends.
Yeah.
It's just so funny.
They referenced
It's
like the big members like Superman and Wonder Woman to even like the Wonder Twins and Wonder Dog. Like that was just all fun.
Actually,
I have those figures too.
Channing
I have
Tatum,
those figures too.
Nice.
probably my favorite animated Superman, just voice actor,
Yeah, he's
and
funny.
he's from this movie. And Jonah Hill was Green Lantern. I think that's a really funny
Yeah.
dynamic. That was from the Lego movie more,
Yeah,
but it was
definitely.
in this,
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. The Lego movie wanted to like focus on their whole like dynamic more, but yeah, they're fun. And I also like how Batman like has this ongoing beef with Superman, like like how he's like, oh, like I'm not here to throw down, and Superman's like, no, I totally crush you, and he's like, yeah, right. And I like how they have that whole rivalry thing going because you know BVS had just come out, so they were really exemplifying that. Also, Zack Snyder's in this universe. I don't know if anyone else noticed that, but like, there's a scene where Superman's on the news, and it shows like him fighting Zod, and it says the footage is provided by Zack Snyder. So there is a Lego Zack Snyder. Yeah, process that for a second. I think that's funny. But yeah, either way. Yeah, that's pretty much everything. Okay, the Batman. Let's talk about
I don't know if you guys have been paying attention. There was a movie that came out last month. And it was kind of, I don't know, it's this little indie film.
Morbius.
Director.
Just kidding.
It was Morbius. I'm talking about Morbius. We're talking about Morbius. Anyway, yeah, as a theater employee, I am way too invested in the progress of this film, of the Batman. So, yeah, let's talk about the Batman.
All right. So, the Batman, which I don't like that title. I never did. I'm just going to go out and I'm going to start out negative. I don't like how it's literally just called the Batman. I'm like, really? Like, after everything
you gotta go from the super positive to the super negative, just to get the contrast.
Yeah. I feel like you
fine title. I don't know what else you'd call it.
I would have called it Batman Vengeance. That's what I would have called it, for reasons we'll get into. Or something.
It was more like one of those animated movie titles from the DCAU.
Well, it's still a cool title. I don't care.
It's cool. I just think the Batman has that, like, theatric kick that like a reboot really needs.
Yeah, I guess. Whatever. It's better than just Batman, I guess. Because, whatever. If you called it just... I imagine they would have just called it Batman, but then we'd have to say Batman 89 and Batman 2022. So
like with the Scream or the Halloween movies, same kind of thing.
Hey, I like Scream.
Fair enough.
Sorry.
I'm just talking about the name. Nothing against the movie. Never seen it.
Anyways, yeah, add in the to your title makes it totally new, as we know. The Batman, the Suicide Squad. I don't know what we're getting next. The Superman.
The Spider-Man.
The Spider-Man. But yeah.
One thing that annoys me about the title is that I always talk about the 2004 TV show, The Batman. Yeah. So now I have to specify. And I never... It's just annoying, because I'm like... Yeah. Man, this is Catwoman's design. They're like, no, it's not. I'm like, talk about the show. It's from 2004. Sorry.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. Like, I would literally just look up, like, the Batman Joker scene. Like, because I'm looking for the 2004 cartoon and Joker from that. Now when I do, I have to specify, you know what? No, I'm not even going to get into that. I'm going to save talking about the J word till the end. We're moving on.
Yeah.
Okay.
Shall we?
Either way, like I said, I would have called this Batman Vengeance, because... And we'll get into, like, Batman's character. But this movie, I don't think I was hyped for this movie nearly as much as everyone else was. Like, everyone was hyping this up, and I was like, I don't know. And obviously, I already explained why. We have seen Batman time and time again. So I was like, at least the Lego Batman movie, like, was, like, a new take on that from, like, it was animated. It was using the toy brand and everything. So it was a new thing with an old, like, lens. But this is, like, a new Batman origin with an asterisk, because we're not doing Batman Year 1, we're doing Batman Year 2. And I was like, this almost feels like a joke of itself. That being said, I was thankfully proven wrong, because the movie was actually pretty good. I say pretty good.
Pretty damn good. It's really enjoyable.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had an interesting experience, because I saw it twice in the theaters. I saw it once by myself, and I really liked it then, and then the more I thought about it, the more I actually started liking it. Like, I started kind of going down to, like, the technical I'll get on that later, but, like, and then I saw it for the second time. I saw it with Alcatavra over here.
Yeah, that's me. Hello.
And it's interesting, and it's, like, it still held up, but for some reason, it's, like, it wasn't as good after that. Which sounds weird. Like, that's such a weird experience. It's like the first one, I was like, wow, this was really good. And then as I kept, like, simmering on it, I was like, wow, this is getting better and better and better. Like, the more I think about it and sleep on it. But then, like, when I watched it again, like, a few weeks later, I was like, this is still good. I don't know, initially when I watched it, the 3 hours didn't get to me. It felt fine. And then when I watched it the second time, I started to kind of...
yes, the runtime. That's been a big, like, debacle for a lot of people.
Because it's like a 4-act structure. It's not 3 acts, it's 4 acts.
I have several thoughts, and everybody asked, so here I go.
Okay, well, quick thing before we get into, like, the actual story is I wanted to brush up. This is one of the best technical like mainstream films I've seen in a bit, like particularly superhero.
I was gonna say for a superhero film.
The cinematography here is so good, and I've heard some people say, "Oh, it's too dirty, it's too bleak, I can't see anything," and I'm like, that's kind of the point.
Yeah.
It works for it, but when it does look good, like it looks really, really good. They had like custom lenses. I think they did it in digital, but they also did it in film too, like or something. So it's got like a mix of that modern, clean look, but it's also vintage looking too, which is interesting. So it's beautiful looking. The sound design is so good. It's so good. It's like that and like Dune are like two of my favorite like in the theater sound design movies right now, because it's so like sound design is one of those things that you don't notice it unless it's either really, really bad or it's really, really good. If it's really bad, it takes you out of it and you're like, God, I can't listen to this. But if it's really, really good, you're like super immersed into it. And then if it's done just fine.
I saw this in IMAX. And
how was that?
Sound IMAX really, it was awesome. Like the penguin, anytime and just all the sound design was really awesome, especially with the soundtrack mixed into. They did really good, and watching it in IMAX, I think, was definitely the way to go with this.
I am so glad that Michael Giacchino, I think that's how you pronounce his name, is that he's getting recognition for his scoring, because he's always been an amazing composer. Like all of his shit that he did for Pixar, like the Up and the Incredibles soundtrack, like he's such like a slept on like composer. Like people don't really talk about him. I guess it's because he mainly did like a lot of like animation work, but now that he doesn't do that as much anymore, I think people are starting to kind of recognize it. I've always have thought his stuff was really good, and I'm really glad people are, you know, waking up to how good his stuff is. The entire score is really good, especially the main Batman theme is just very, very good. But yeah, I just wanted to touch on the technical side first before we got into like story and characters and things that people kind of pay more attention to, because fair. I think that is like the production and the post-production, like all the below the line stuff that went on here was done really, really well, and everybody involved in it deserves all the praise in the world. So
I remember I saw this at Jesus. So like I said, I work at a theater and we do employee screenings for really big movies like this. So I saw this at 1:00 after we had closed. I was the only one who showed up. Kind of pissed off at that. But it was just me.
Imagine getting this movie all to yourself.
For yourself, that actually kind of sounds nice.
It was me in a big ass theater by myself, just experiencing it, and I kept going, "Wow, this looks so good!"
Right?
Especially because I think No Way Home had gotten leaked in HD recently, and people were like cherry picking shots and going, "Oh wow, this looks horrible." And yeah, there are some shots in No Way Home where it's like, "Oh wow, this looks horrible." But then like, I just remember in the theater, like that scene where he's walking through the club and the lights are flashing, and it's just so well contrasted and shot. And it's just like, this is so visually competent, and I'm not used to seeing visual competence in superhero movies. I always expect the bare minimum, and this movie really outshined.
I'm so glad that, like, for the most part, this movie is very clear. You can see what's going on, but when they do decide to like obscure stuff, like they're not afraid to do that. Like they're not afraid to have people go, "I can't see what's going on. Like I need to see exactly what's happening, and I need to see all the characters when they're talking." When it's like, can you just let the camera like just be its own character here?
Yeah,
you know,
definitely.
like it. You know, like I mean, that's what you get. That's especially why it's so important with like superhero movies, is that they all kind of just like they do their job. Look, the cinematography for the most part does its job, except for maybe like a couple shots from like certain movies. I could tell you, I'm not blaming the cinematographers at all. I think the cinematographers are doing great, but it's just comes down to the types of things that they ask you to do. Like, for example, like Rachel Morrison is like one of the best cinematographers out there right now, and I absolutely adore her work. And there was probably a handful of
a handful of shots in Black Panther where I was like, wow, I can really see that this is a Rachel Morrison shot, and then everything else is just a Marvel shot. So I'm not blaming the cinematographers at all. I think they're doing a great job. And I know it's a hell of a lot of work. Yeah, it's not even the industry. It's just that they just kind of demand that clean, same type of look. And, you know, and sometimes it's okay to not be clean. And especially with this, I think it really works for it to not be clean.
We're referring to cleanliness in regards to cinematography. You should actually clean yourself, like, as a person, just to be clear. But yeah, like, make sure to take showers, kids. But yes, Galactic Blame has a point.
But yeah, like, I just think that it's actually very nice to the audience. Like, you're not insulting the audience where it's like they have to see everything happening in real time or like completely unobscured. I really like that they don't do that here. And I know people have criticisms of that, and I understand where they're coming from, but I think it makes for a more engaging experience to not always see what's happening all the time, even though it is a visual medium. I don't know.
Okay.
But I mean, they do it sparingly. It's not like it's all the time. But when they do it right, I think, here.
Okay. Yeah, and what do I want to bring up? But yeah, you have a good point about like just like cinematography and whatnot, and even like the whole point of like not being able to see everything. Sometimes that works to its favor. I think like the scene everyone will point out is like what I'll call the bullet scene, like when all the lights are out and people are shooting at Batman. And
such a good scene.
So good.
That's one of the few like snippets of a scene that I'll go back and rewatch again and again and again. Like
I mean,
that
it
was
especially
really cool.
adds to like creating a scary Batman, like you know, like a Batman that people are genuinely afraid of, especially now because he's so new. Like people kind of, you know, he doesn't have like the notoriety. He has a notoriety, but not like the kind that we know of, and we don't even know a lot about this Batman. And just like the fact that, you know, it like that you don't see him all the time and everything really adds to that, because I mean that's like the basic premise of horror is you don't show like what's coming after you, you know, and I feel like that adds to, I mean, it's not necessarily scary to us, we find it cool, but it, you know, it immerses yourself because you're like, damn, if I was a criminal, I'd be fucking terrified too.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like I would be absolutely terrified of this man, and you know, like I feel like that's, you know, and they don't do it. It's not super flashy, but yeah. But they also aren't afraid to show when he fucks up too. Like, you know, like it's not always clean. Like the way he fights. Like sometimes he looks badass, and other times you're like, oh right, he's still kind of new at this.
Yeah. And we'll
the scene where he completely wipes out with the fucking.
Oh my god!
It's so funny.
It's
Yeah,
funny.
the glider. That was like an interesting choice.
Movie,
to, like,
okay,
yeah.
like because I already talked about Lego Batman's humor, I guess it's only fair that I talk about the humor in this movie, because it's very sparing, but when it is used, it is like, you know, and it's not like the type of humor where you're like, you're in a full-blown drama and oh god, this movie is so bleak, we gotta throw in one random joke in there just so that people aren't like, you know, super down in the dumps. It's like, it works for what it is. It's like the thumb drive joke is like, oh my god. Like the dry presentation of thumb drive. A lot of basically anything that Jeffrey Wright says is kind of funny, but it's like, it's the opposite of Lego Batman's humor, which, you know, makes sense because the tones are basically the opposite here. It's very much like a dry black comedy type of humor, you know, it's like self-aware. So sometimes they're like, wow, this is kind of ridiculous right now, but, you know, it's used as a coping mechanism, and it feels realistic because if I was living in a shithole like Gotham, I'd be making fun of how, like, absolutely ridiculous the living situation there is, too. So it, like, works, you know, and it's used, but it's not used rare enough where it feels out of place when a joke does come up, but it's not out of place because it's used all the time. Like, it's used the right amount. Like, again, like, that's, like, another thing with this movie is I think everything from, like, the cinematography to even the humor, like, when they do decide to pull back or do something different, they do it enough that it's like not out of the blue, but they also aren't, you know, I don't know, it's just balanced. I just feel like a lot of this stuff is very controlled. I don't know. It knows what it is, and I respect that. Like, it doesn't have a tone issue at all, which is really hard for movies to do, especially full-blown dramas like this, is that your tone is, like, super important, and it's one of the hardest things to, like, get right in a movie. Because you kind of don't know what the tone is going to totally look like until the time you get to the editing room. So there's a lot of time to make mistakes there, but it knows what it is, and it, you know, and I respect that. So,
all right, yeah, all that out of the way. I guess we'll get into like other stuff. Like basically, before I forget, like Galactic Blame brought up pacing a little while ago, and like how the movie's like 3 hours, which people have complained about, and like I don't really care if a movie's like literally like 12 hours long.
Yeah.
Like it can immerse me, and it was pretty immersive. I think I like got bored at like one point near the end, but then like picked back up. So it wasn't like dragging to the point that like I would never not.
I did notice. I did notice when I watched it the first time. I was like, there's like a solid 30 minutes without the Riddler in it.
Yeah.
Without like the presence of the main villain. Like they do this like side quest thing with Falcone.
Yeah, pretty much.
And then they come back.
I feel like that probably, they kind of just left off at that one clue and just like didn't go back to it until they saw that other plot line. I feel like that should have been like, they should have worked on that particular side of the script so they could have gone back and forth between the two, I guess the A and the B story. Because I guess Falcone is the B story, technically. I don't know. Sometimes it feels like even the Riddler is the B story. It's kind of...
Honestly, yeah, I genuinely forgot, like, he was the main villain for, like, a good 30 minutes.
Yeah, that's definitely a problem. And, again, like, I also don't mind a movie being 3 hours. I really don't care. It's just, as long as you do it right, then I won't feel the 3 hours. Because like most movies now are 2.5 anyway, so it's like, okay, what's another half an hour, you know? But as long as it's done right. And again, the first time I saw this, it felt like a 2 hour 15, 2 hour 30 movie. It didn't feel like a 3 hour movie to me. And then by the time I watched it the second time, I was like, yeah, you can kind of see some of the problems in like the 3/4 act. And I get it, like I'm not gonna knock it down for not having the perfect 3-act structure. I actually respect the fact that it decided to kind of have, to have like an open-ended ending that isn't like totally wrapped up nicely in a bow, and that they kind of deviated from structure because, it's like you kind of have to know the rules before you break them. So I feel like as long as it's done right, then it works. I feel like this could have been done a lot worse. But I feel like it probably could have used another draft just for like definitely. The 3/4 act.
I think some stuff honestly.
It's not bad. It's just like it just drags like a tiny bit. So I feel like they could have cleaned that up like a little bit. But I mean, that's really hard to do that and to do that well. So the fact that they managed to make it even like, decent, like good for them. I don't know how I could have done it. But yeah, like that probably just needed like another draft or so. And I don't know it, but other than that, like I felt like it was fine for the most part. I'm kind of interested to see what it's going to be like. So I'll probably watch it again when it comes on streaming and see what it feels.
That's a couple of days from now.
Oh, it is. Yeah. So I'll kind of see what that's going to be like because that could kill it too. Cause it's one thing to be in a theater and to like fully, immerse yourself in it because there's no other distractions, but like, and you're just fully engaged in it. But I'm kind of interested to see how the pacing is going to hold up, especially since the second time I saw it, it kind of started falling off a little bit, what that's going to be like for an at-home release. I don't know. Right. Did you feel like that too, Triple M? Did it kind of like the pacing fall off for you the second time around?
No, I was going to say I had the opposite effect.
Oh, that's interesting.
When I saw the movie the first time, like I
kind of
said,
thing.
Yeah, when I saw the movie the first time, it was 1:00 in the morning for me, and I had been at work all day. So I was kind of like, okay, let's wrap it up. Especially when you get to the third act, and there's this weird thing where it keeps pressing the gas and the brakes and the gas and the brakes. Like, it'll rev up the tension and then it'll slow down, and it'll rev up and it'll slow down. And I noticed that my first viewing. Then my second viewing, I saw it with Jay and a couple of friends, and I was like, okay, no, this is paced pretty well. And I am obviously going to watch it again when it comes to streaming on, I think it's next Sunday that it comes out, or Saturday, just to see if maybe I was wrong or right, or who cares, you know?
Okay.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how that's gonna go. So
I've seen it, I think, like 4 times, and I don't think the pacing. Yeah, I just keep seeing it with different people, but I don't think the pacing has ever gotten like. I don't ever think it's been egregiously bad from my perspective, at least.
no,
I think I've enjoyed it. Like, yeah, I just don't think I think I've enjoyed it more and more actually as I've seen it. I didn't like the second and third viewings. I thought the first one was like the least enjoyable because, like, you know, I got the pacing and everything.
Yeah, I don't think the pacing is bad at all. I think for the most part, the entire movie is paced really well, especially for how much is going on, because there's a lot going on. I just feel like there's like a half an hour part in the movie, like around the third, fourth act, that just kind of is like, okay, this probably could have been brushed up a little bit, but it's by no means bad. It's just not as good as the rest of the movie, in my opinion. It's not like a Wonder Woman where like the third act like assassinates like the quality of the rest of the movie, like, you know, but it's not that egregious, but you know, it's yeah, I'm kind of curious to see what it'll be like again, but I felt like overall the pacing was actually done really well.
All right. That being said, what was my next point? I guess I'll just get into like some basic like character and story stuff. Like what I want to bring up is that I have a theory. I don't think Batman's name is Batman in this movie. Because correct me if I'm wrong.
I think a lot of people.
Yeah.
I think his name is Vengeance, right?
Yeah. I think that's like his name.
No.
Is, yeah.
No.
No what?
No.
I mean, the Riddler addresses
They
the
call
things.
him-
I mean, they do. Yeah, he calls him
that's the
Batman,
thing.
but I'm
He
wondering.
calls himself the Batman.
Yeah, but
He
I'm
calls himself
wondering
Batman
if
later.
it's just like the Riddler that does that, because no other
No,
character.
he calls himself
Yeah,
the Batman.
Wait.
He goes-
Wait. Here's my point that you just brought up.
Oh,
I was
sorry.
going to get to that. How he calls himself later. Here's my theory is that he calls himself Vengeance. The only person who calls him the Batman is Riddler, but he calls him the Batman as a descriptor because he looks like a Batman. So he's calling him the Batman, and then Batman sees that and takes the name. That's my theory of how it goes. He's called Vengeance because he literally wants vengeance. Then the Riddler is calling him the Batman, and so he takes that inspiration because no one else calls him that. That's just kind of like where I'm coming from with it. But yeah, that's just my theory. And that would also explain why Commissioner Gordon's like, does any of this mean anything to you? Because remember when he gives him the letter, I remember Galactic Blame, I don't know if you heard me say this when we were in the theater, but when like he points the letter to him and he's like, any of this mean anything to you? I was like, no, it's clearly for the other Batman down the street, right? Because like obviously it's for him if he's the Batman, but the only reason Gordon would ask that is if he doesn't know that's his name, or if he doesn't go by that name, right? Like that would make that
I
sense.
mean, it is
Or
like
Gordon was just making one of his dry jokes, like he always does. You know,
I
like
don't
sarcasm.
know. Take it as you will. That's my theory.
Yeah,
I'm just saying.
I feel like there could be an argument for like either side.
Yeah.
And I think there's a couple things in this movie that are like left up to like interpretation, like depending on how you took the viewing.
Either way, I think I bring all this theory up because I think it actually works in the narrative's favor if he is not called Batman till he decides to later in the movie when he changes. Because we'll get into like the narrative arc of this movie, and I think the idea of his name legit being Vengeance actually would work in the movie's like thematic favor. But yeah, we'll get to that later. Either way, that's just why I wanted to bring it up.
Or we can get into it now.
Oh yeah, and also I just want to say that him being called Vengeance just made me quietly in the back of my head wish we had gotten, you know, an original IP about a vigilante named Vengeance who put on a costume that had looked nothing like a bat and was, you know, actually new.
Because that shit doesn't tell you, go.
Good. One can dream. But yeah, either way, legit, if there had been a movie about a vigilante called like Vengeance, I legit would have watched that, but it wouldn't have made money because it doesn't say Batman because we gotta make money. But anyways, let's get into the themes of this movie. So basically, the idea, the big theme, the reason I love this movie, and it connects to the other one that we'll get into later, is that like this is another movie that isn't afraid to actually, you know, critique the character of Batman. And that's kind of the whole like point, is to be about him growing into a better hero. This isn't like him, he's not like beginning, but he's still kind of fresh, if that makes sense, because obviously this is like his second year. So they kind of like focus on him like having to like learn like from issues, like he can't be he's too brutal, he isn't really like making his motives and ideals clear to the public, and also he's not very good with people in general. And that's even carried over into Bruce Wayne. Bruce Wayne and Batman are kind of the same person, which a lot of people have complained about, but I actually like. Like in public, he's just kind of this loner emo. I mean, that may just be because Robert Pattinson looks like a loner emo, but like it really works in favor of the movie. Like his whole character flaw is that he's just kind of closed off and too obsessed with this like dark mission.
It's certainly a different interpretation of Bruce Wayne too. You know, it's not the usual like playboy persona. This is the first time I think we've seen a Bruce Wayne who
he'll go up to like the actual part of his house and he'll like flinch at the sunlight and put on sunglasses.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's such a freak. He's just
yeah, it's actually like kind of a more relatable Bruce Wayne in terms of like kind of, but I don't know. I mean, like the other like obsession and stuff like that are like really what makes it like an interesting character study. It's so weird because like I just like kind of know I didn't really notice it until I watched this movie that like a lot of Batman movies, and especially a lot of the like really like beloved Batman movies like The Dark Knight, they're not really like Batman movies. I mean, like they're Batman movies, like they have Batman in them and Batman does his thing, but like characters. They don't explore like anything deeper about Batman. They're just like, this is Batman, you know, he became, you know, he wanted to get like justice because his parents died, whatever, you know, like everybody knows the same thing.
Yeah.
So it's like the fact that this like does that in a bit more of like an introspective way instead of like showing that, it's like I thought that was really interesting. Like it was nice to kind of get him to have a character study for once.
Definitely. Like the whole point is that like he's just kind of like flawed in his whole approach and has to grow as a person. And I'll get back to that like with the main thesis when I cover Riddler, because this will be important to him too. Another character to get to is like Catwoman. I was kind of hesitant to having like so many like, you know, big name characters. Like we got Batman, Catwoman, Riddler, Penguin, and him, all in like one movie. But they balanced it like pretty well. Catwoman is just kind of like a secondary like protagonist. I thought they were gonna have her be more of like a sort of middle ground anti-hero, but she's more or less on Batman's side, although they do kind of diverge at certain points. Her whole angle is that she's like the more down to earth, like relatable person, which I think was like necessary to help like show Batman like his flaws, because another thing they really address is that Batman's approaching his whole mission from a more elitist, privileged angle, right? Like he's grown up like with a silver spoon in his mouth. And obviously that doesn't mean like he's a bad person, because it's not his fault that he's like so spoiled, right? However, that means he's not gonna know everything from a certain perspective. Like one detail I really liked is that I can't remember what it was, but the tool that Riddler used to kill the first guy is actually like very important in the end. And like one of the random cops knows what it is, but Batman didn't. He didn't know what it was. It was like some basic gardening tool, because Batman never gardened, being a privileged kid, right?
It's a Tucker.
So I talked to one of my professors in screenplay story development. Mm-hmm. We had a bit of a discussion about it because she didn't like the movie, which is the first person I've seen in real life who really didn't like it. And I understood like some of her points and others, but like the ones that I mainly were like, yeah, that makes sense, is like two of them. Is one of them is, so
Catwoman is like, so she's Falcone's daughter, right?
Mhm.
And she's like, I want to kill him for what he did to my mom. I want to get revenge. I want money, whatever.
Mhm.
But and my professor was like, okay, but why is she doing this now? So she's been with him like this whole time. She's been at the club and doing this stuff this entire time. Why is she doing it now?
Yeah,
and I was like,
Because
I was like, that
no,
is
because there's a very simple explanation to this. because of Annika.
Oh, right.
That's
the girl.
That's why.
Yeah.
Because she just wanted to, I guess, bide her time and gather as much info as she could on this guy and scam him for all that he was worth, and that was revenge enough. But then he killed her best friend.
Ah, okay.
That's fair. Yeah, I feel like they should have maybe developed Annika a bit more.
Yeah, I kind of forgot
Yes,
about her.
she does have. I think her second
Annika,
frame time.
As a fellow Annika, I feel like they should have developed.
Oh, yeah.
Annika.
yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So, but yeah, no, that makes sense too. But then, like the other one, I'm trying to remember what it was. Oh god, I can't remember now. Okay, well, oh well. But yeah, no, that makes sense now. But I do feel like maybe they could have hit that home a little bit more because she kind of forgets about the whole Annika thing until she finds her body, and I was like, oh right, that was like your whole reason for doing this.
Yeah,
Catwoman kind of takes a break to steal like a sack of money, and in the process of stealing the money, she finds the body, and it's like the two events.
Wait, wasn't that like what you were trying to do in the first place?
She
like, why are you?
For the body? She just wanted
Yeah,
the body there.
yeah. No, I feel like maybe that was a combination of drafts. Like maybe
that just felt like kind of a weird
I have like a bit of a theory. I'm wondering because of that whole thing. I'm wondering if like Falcone being her dad was like. I wonder if that was like a rewrite change.
Probably
Because it's like it seems like she's like kind of a C plot, and then Falcone's kind of I don't know. They're both the B plot now.
That is a direct pull from a Batman story.
I know the
not Long Halloween.
That's not my point. That's not my point. My point is that if they're writing the script and they're like doing this, and they're like, okay, we have all these characters and everything, and maybe they're like, okay, maybe we need a stronger pull for like Catwoman to go after Falcone. I'm just saying, like, it seems like when I'm looking back on it, some of the motivations and stuff, especially with the whole thing where she like is going after him because he killed her best friend, or she at least suspects it, and she's trying to find her, and then she kind of drops that and then goes for the whole money thing instead, and then finds her friend's corpse. It's just like a weird. I feel like it's like a rewrite thing. Like I feel like they were like, oh, we gotta combine these plots. There's too many separate things going on. I feel like we should combine it. I feel like that might have been a thing that could have happened. I'm not saying that is what happened. I don't know what was going through the writers' heads, but I'm just saying that kind of looks like that might be the case. As someone who's on 2 writers' rooms right now, things like that kind of happen a lot. Like, you're like, oh god, we gotta change these plot lines. We gotta combine the B and the C story because there's too much going on. So it's like, I don't know. It seems like it could have been done that way.
Honestly, like, I feel like you didn't even need like the whole Falcone being her father thing. You could have just had it be that Annika gets. I can't call her Annika because we have an Annika in the call right now. I'm just gonna call her Ani. I'm just gonna call her Ani. Okay.
No, call her Annika. Annika was.
Annika. Okay. Yeah. Anakin Skywalker. So basically, the whole point with Annika is that like I feel like that would have been enough. Just have it so like her and Annika were like close to Falcone, and once Falcone killed her friend,
is that like
like
her like emotional connection to like Falcone? And I'm not saying a good or a bad one. I'm just saying that like it doesn't feel emotional enough. Like it feels like wow, this seems like something that should be presented way more strongly, but it seems like it was more of an afterthought, which is fine. But like it seems more like it's a rewrite thing.
Yeah, because I feel like just having it be that, like, she's not related to him, but he killed her friend, that would have explained why she waited till now to go after him. Like, that would have been enough. I don't really know what the whole, like, other than being, like, a reference to the comics, I don't really see the relevance of them being related, personally. I feel like someone killing your best friend is more than enough reason for you to want them dead. But, yeah. Either way, other than that, what else? Speaking of killing, then there's the whole like Wayne murder part. I was kind of iffy on how they would handle this because the Waynes getting shot is kind of a meme at this point. They don't show it. They kind of address it, and they don't even really aren't explicit about how it happened. Like I was just gonna assume Joe Chill. You know how it is, right? Random guy shot him. But what happened?
Don't like Joe Chill.
Yeah, what happened here is that like it's implied it might be Falcone who set it up. It might have been Maroni who set it up. It might have been someone. It's kind of just left vague.
So can I offer my thoughts about this?
Yeah.
Yeah, in 1 second. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Jay. Go ahead.
Yeah, I like how it's left vague because it makes it so that because Falcone tells him that it was Maroni, and then Alfred's like, I don't think it was Maroni. I think it was Falcone. And Alfred's like, but I can't know for sure. Mm-hmm. So the fact that like they leave it open, like they don't show it at all. It just is like completely open because Bruce doesn't know, so we don't know because the whole movie we only see things from Bruce's perspective, except for like I think the opening scene.
Okay.
My perspective on this is I have a very strict view of how I think Batman Origins should be explained.
Okay.
I think the best possible way you can do a Batman origin is if he never even knows the name of the guy who killed his parents, or he never sees his face. Giving a face and a name to the person that kills Bruce's parents takes away from the thematic importance that it's just wrong place, wrong time. Gotham has become so corrupt and destitute that you can't walk down the street anymore. And then the second you assign like a Joe Chill to that, you personify it.
Or a Jack Napier, like the 89 movie.
Don't even get me started, because the worst thing you can do in a Batman origin is give Batman a personal connection to the killer. Or now I like the angle that the Waynes are corrupt. I like the angle where Bruce has to reevaluate his entire life choices. Mm-hmm. But I don't like it when it's like, nah, it was actually a hit. No, I don't like that. I think that it needs to be a random act of violence that happened to the wrong person and scarred him the wrong way. That's Batman.
Logan, is that a complaint of the movie, or like it's just a remark?
No, it's a remark. Like I said, I like the way that it's vague in the movie. You'll never really know.
Okay, you like that it's. That's what I was clarifying. Yeah. Sorry.
You will never really know, and I hope we never really know. Because for a while there in the theater, I was like, "Oh God, no, it's a hit." But no, it's not. You'll never know. And it's like Jay said, every single scene in this movie is told from Bruce's perspective, except for the opening. We never leave his side in this film. It's really well done.
Okay.
And those are kind of my closing thoughts on the movie.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with the whole like angle of like leaving it like ambiguous. Although I don't know why they would bring up the idea that it could have been a hit, if not to just stir like theories. I feel like that was kind of just unnecessary, personally. But whatever the case, they still say it could have been anything.
Yeah, I think they do that just to kind of add the friction between Batman and Alfred.
Okay.
Just for that really like heartfelt scene.
Okay.
But I guess what you mean. It is a little unnecessary because yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh, Elms forgot
to
mention.
Alfred is definitely underutilized in this film.
I was literally just about to say, Alfred, I almost forgot about him.
I don't really know the solution because it's already so overcrowded anyway. I don't know what other place you could have him in. Like, maybe, like, 2 more scenes, but, like, you need to have him in, like... It can't just be like, oh, let's just put him in a scene for, like, a random... reason. There's no point. But
I think the best angle is to have Alfred probably be a sort of guy in the chair situation from like the Batcave or something. He kind of does that a couple of times in this movie where he helps Batman with some of his like clues he's trying to solve. So that was okay, and I like that.
I do really like that they don't that like the whole thing. Bruce doesn't ever like ask Alfred for help really because he's a loner. He does it on his own. It just so happens that Alfred, like, picked up the cipher on his own and is like, yeah, I started solving it. And then Bruce is like, okay, cool. Like, he never was like, Alfred, help me solve this cipher because Bruce wants to do it on his own.
Yeah, that's a
so
good
I
point.
thought that was cool.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, the fact that he, like, nearly dies and that is what helps Bruce, like, start to open up more. That was, like, a good point in, like, the story arc for Bruce.
It's so good. It's just such an enjoyable film.
Yeah.
Sorry, I hate to cut in. I love it so much.
No, you're right. I really enjoyed it.
I hope it sets a standard for superhero films. I hope they start to look better. I hope they are better written. Obviously, I don't want to be the guy who's like, all superhero films are the same.
Mm-hmm.
But I do, like, this is such a cut above the rest.
Yeah.
And DC
It's not just a good
in general lately has
it's
been...
a good film, like, in general.
Mm-hmm.
DC in general has just been kind of knocking it out of the park with their character work.
Yeah,
with the Batman, Peacemaker, and the Suicide Squad. It's just they're doing good stuff.
Mm-hmm. Other than that, what's next? Next thing to go over is that, like, the movie, other characters to get out of the way. We already talked about Alfred. Commissioner Gordon's cool, I guess. He's kind of there. I feel like he gets away with a little, or he's not even commissioner. That's the point. He gets away with, like, a lot. I think he's, like, just the lieutenant. And I feel like he and Batman get away with a lot because Batman's not officially, like, a police ally. Like, I think Gordon's the only cop that really likes him.
Become the commissioner when the other commissioner dies.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure.
Is that what happened? I think so.
Bro, I don't know.
The one with Martinez has a really good character arc where he starts to, like, at first he's like he doesn't like Batman, and then he kind of sees that Batman's like doing the right thing, and he like starts to help him out towards the end.
Yeah.
That was really
I also
good,
just like Martinez. Martinez might be the best character in the movie just because he's funny.
Yeah.
He's just like, hey, Mr. Wayne. And then he goes, it's a Tucker. And then that's it. That's his arc. That's all you need.
Pretty much. He helps Batman. Either way, like I was saying with Gordon, I feel like he gets away with a little too much. Because, like, when he's the commissioner, like, even if the other cops, like, don't like him, like, take something like Batman the Animated Series. Harvey Bullock does not like Batman at all. But Commissioner Gordon's the boss, so he goes along with it. But here, Gordon's just kind of a lieutenant. So, like, I have no idea why all the other cops, like, they allow him to have a bat signal. And they allow him to keep bringing Batman into scenes. Because while they say he has a good track record, obviously the commissioner, like the actual one, does not approve of this. And like they even get to the point where they have Batman captured, and like and they stage a plan where Batman will pretend to knock out Gordon so he can escape the police department. And then after that, Batman is still allowed into police scenes. He literally assaulted a cop and ran away.
Yeah, I wonder if any cop afterwards was like, hey, wait, didn't he punch you in the fucking face?
Yeah, they should have been like, see, this proves our
You're
point.
gonna punch me in the face.
That's all I was like, they should have used that as proof that they can't trust him, but then they still let him into crime scenes later, and they still let Gordon work with him, and I'm like,
yeah.
Why? I'm like, I feel like there's a beat missing here.
The movie has to happen.
Yeah, that just feels like something they could have had a one-off line, like, this is your last chance, or something. I don't know. But whatever. Either way, Gordon is okay. He's, I don't know. Gordon's never really usually that prevalent in most of these movies. He's kind of like Batman's friend.
But he actually, did shit here.
Yeah, they actually work together.
They actually, isn't just like, oh, we have to have Gordon because we always have to have Gordon. Like, they, actually kind of made him like a buddy.
Yeah, that's fair.
A few scenes, which was nice.
Mm-hmm.
And it's nice to actually see Batman, kind of bonding with somebody.
Mm-hmm.
That he never fucking does. Because he's just so...
Speaking of bonding back to Catwoman, their relationship I thought was handled well enough. They're not explicitly in love, but they obviously do care about each other. But they still don't go all the way because Batman's kind of socially awkward, and Selina is approaching her whole vigilante thing from a different angle. And she knows, and she even says at the end he's already spoken for. He's stuck protecting the city while she wants to go off and do her own thing. So it's kind of a tragic romance there. It was okay, I guess. I don't know. But yeah, other than that, we got to get into the main Penguin. He's cool. I don't really have much
He's
to say
the best part of the movie.
what I like about Penguin.
I'm so excited for his spinoff.
Yeah.
Holy shit!
I like Colin Farrell's makeup that they did for him. That was really cool.
That is the one thing that you will hear everybody, if they didn't like this movie, they said that they loved Colin Farrell as Penguin. That's you cannot go wrong with
just a proprietor.
I really like how he looked nothing like Colin Farrell in this movie.
Yeah,
it was great. It was amazing.
He looked awesome.
It was amazing.
But yeah, I think that would be a fun trend to just have. The only other time I've had this epiphany was with Tom Cruise in Tropic Thunder. I want to see more stuff like this where the actor
Hey,
looks
don't forget Jared Leto in House of Gucci.
Oh my god!
Not doing that. Doing that.
I want to see more actors just like look nothing like themselves. I'm loving this. I just want to see them like literally just put them in a completely different like attire or makeup, and then let me be surprised when I see the cast list. I love that. But either way, he was cool. Falcone was fine. He was like a mobster guy, I guess, and he died.
I really like that they got
Great
the guy
casting.
from Transformers to show up in that movie.
Tell
I just-
Megatron, let's tango.
I wish that Falcone would have said that in the Batman, but it wouldn't have made sense.
Tell the Batman, let's tango.
Okay. But anyway,
I don't know. It's just such an enjoyable film.
Now on to the main
Can we-
antagonist. Yeah. Now on to the main antagonist, the Redditor. I mean the Riddler. So
Yeah.
yes, funny original joke that I totally made up. Totally came up with the first person to ever make that joke. I'm so funny. Thank you. Anyways, in all seriousness,
It just occurred to me we have not talked about Riddler.
Yeah,
Wow.
Riddler.
Sorry, keep going.
Riddler
Okay.
is an interesting. Okay, I don't hate Riddler. I don't really care for him. I don't know.
It's
I think,
certainly not comic accurate. I'll
Yeah.
say that. Like
comic.
anyone
schmucks,
out there
yeah.
who ever got mad at Zack Snyder for doing not comic accurate stuff, you can't go out and praise this Riddler because
Yeah.
while he's great, he's not comic accurate.
Yeah, I miss
Real
the
life Riddler
tux.
is queer.
Yeah, I miss the tux. I love the tux. I love the purple mask. I'm fine with Zodiac Killer Riddler, but
Yeah.
I got a soft spot for the tux.
Yeah,
Anyway,
so do I.
Yeah,
He's
either
like
way.
my favorite Batman villain, and just once, I would like to not have to watch Gotham to get a good version of Riddler. Like, once again, like I said, this version of Riddler is good. I really miss Frank Gorshin's Riddler, where he's
Yeah,
just
that's
a goofy, silly guy
Yeah, that's fair.
who isn't terrifying in every way.
Yeah.
But also, I like that when you take off Riddler's mask, he's just a guy. He's
Yeah.
just a soft boy.
Just a little baby
Like-
boy.
Like in that scene in the diner, it's like, oh, that's who we're afraid of? Okay.
But yeah, I do
Like,
have
whatever.
some like my criticisms mainly stem from the fact that I feel like his schemes are really compelling for the narrative, obviously, and he has a very imposing presence as a mystery. But like his reasoning is kind of not skimmed over, but it's not really developed too much because they wait till the very end. And I mean, the worst part is I got more from him about him from the novelization of this movie. Like they had a prequel novel that like focuses on like how Batman and Riddler like came into where they are, and on Riddler's end they focus on like how shitty his life was in the orphanage, how shitty his life was like with like socializing with people, and how that inspired him to become more menacing. And I'm like, there is so much you could focus on here. Like really just like ditch the Falcone like Catwoman subplot and focus on Riddler's backstory. I really want to like know more about like him because he kind of just like explains it all like to Batman when he's in Arkham, just like, oh yeah, we had an awful life in the orphanage, like it was terrible, and everyone focused on Bruce Wayne. And I'm like, I kind of want to see more of that, and we kind of do when Batman and Gordon go to the orphanage and they see how crummy it is. But like, I wanted to see more of Riddler growing up, seeing how he got here, just seeing more of him as a person, and we might in the future. But for this movie as of itself, like, I think Riddler just works for the plot, but not enough as his own character, if that makes sense. I don't know. But that's just kind of my criticism of it.
Fair. I think it's fair. I mean, there's part of me that wants to defend it and say, well, Paul Dano's writing the comic about the character, which I think is cool to have the actor write a comic.
Yep.
Yeah.
Jim Carrey did
But
that with
also-
Sonic 2. By the way, Jim Carrey did that
Yeah,
for the Sonic 2.
but also,
comic.
like, I also fall into the same mindset with Star Wars, where it's like, okay, well, yeah, the prequels suck, and if you pull out this defense of, if you watch Clone Wars, like, I'm not going to do 7 hours of homework to enjoy this movie.
Yeah,
so
fair.
I get it. I get wanting more, but at the same time, like, I think they are going to do more. You're right. I wish they had done more in the movie.
Yeah. either way, what bothers me is like how the movie ends. So okay, Riddler's whole scheme is I'm gonna take down the corrupt of Gotham. His methods are bad in that he's like killing people and stuff, but like he's exposing legit corruption from the angle of like the corrupt mayor, the corrupt commissioner, the corrupt Waynes, and the whole aspect of him taking out his vengeance on Bruce. I think that's an interesting like angle to explain like sins of the father and how it's not Bruce's fault that his parents may or may not have done bad stuff. So it's interesting that he's exposing all this like quieted corruption, and obviously he had a bad life. Then he decides to flood the entire city and kill everyone. And I'm like, I'm sorry. Slow down.
I mean, he's kind of crazy. I don't know. I understand it.
Like, that's
flood the city. Yeah. Flood the city, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, because here's the thing. This is like the dilemma of, I don't know what to call it, but I'll call it the villain has a point dilemma. Where you have a villain in a story who like has a point about something like social injustice or some kind of corruption. Like they have a point and they're actually exposing and trying to bring light to an important issue, right? And the hero like may or may not agree with them, but the whole problem is how the villain's going about it. Like they're killing people, they're getting people hurt, right? And from that point, you can either have the villain die and the problem dies with them, which is bad, and a lot of stories unfortunately do this, or you can have the villain die, and then the hero takes what the villain wanted to do and does it better. Oddly enough, as much as I shit on this movie, Black Panther actually did this pretty well. Where Killmonger has a point, he's going about it in the wrong way, he's being too violent, and then T'Challa actually like learns from him. Like Killmonger's point is Wakanda has resources to help people, but they're keeping to themselves. And the problem is that he's going to use the resources to like take over the world and kill the people he doesn't like. Then T'Challa takes that whole point about using resources to help the outside world rather than conquer it. So that's like how you can take that dilemma and work from it. So let's apply that to the Batman. Riddler's point is that he's exposing corruption. His problem is that he's killing people and getting innocent people hurt to do it. And Batman's answer is, I don't know. he locks him up. I don't know. He doesn't really do much. Like, I don't know. Y'all, am I missing something? Like, Batman never really addresses...
We have like 10 minutes left in the movie. How is he supposed to do that?
Like, well, that's a writing thing then. The movie had to be restructured to actually, like, bring that more to the fore issue. I know there's obviously more sequels and stuff coming. So for all I know, Batman goes on, like, a Robin Hood crusade in the sequel to expose every single corrupt official. But as of now, they never really have Batman be like, you know, the Riddler's right about corruption and we should challenge that, but in a better way. Like, I'm just saying I feel like that should have been addressed more rather than... Because having him flood the city basically literally floods out. It washes away, like, metaphorically, the importance of, like, his point about exposing corruption. It just, like, turns him into just a full-on crazy rather than actually having to address the fact that there are, like, bad people in power and stuff in Gotham.
I think the issue with it is that, like, Riddler's plan, like, works. He finishes everything he wanted to do. So, like, there's not as much corruption because, or, like, to Riddler, there's not any more corruption because Falcone's gone.
Okay.
And, like, Penguin hadn't taken power yet. So I think they don't address it just because they all think that the corruption's over because Riddler did what he wanted to do.
Ah, okay. I mean, that could still be, like I'm saying, this could still be focused on more in a sequel. And yeah, to recap, my problems with Riddler is that he feels more like a service to the plot rather than an individual character. I wish they focused more on his personality. I miss the leprechaun pimp look from the comics. I just do. But I'm fine with Zodiac Killer vibe.
Anything else?
We have another... So I have one more character to go over. And then we have to get to the thesis of the movie. And that should be it. So, the last character to get to. Joker is in this movie. Galactic Flame, do you remember when that happened in the movie?
Yeah.
I looked over you?
I really don't. I don't feel the need to talk about it. It's not really.
I'm gonna keep this.
It has Glove Shido vibes, but it works. That's what I'll say.
It's not even relevant. Like, it doesn't play into the story. Yeah. Like, leaving it open for interpretation. And I don't care.
Yeah, so I'll keep this brief. If there's anything I'm annoyed of more than the saturation of Batman, it's specifically the saturation of Joker. Because obviously everyone wants to make a big deal of Joker. From the people who play him, to the people who cosplay as him, to the people who write him. Like, Joker's a big deal and steals the show more than Batman often whenever he's on screen. And so I feel like this is a very... especially now, as Joker's everywhere. And I'm just like... I was happy when this movie came out. I was like, okay, we're getting a new Batman, but at least we're focusing on like Riddler and Penguin, you know, no more Joker. And then the movie literally features Joker. And I don't know what I hate more. The fact that Joker has to be everywhere, or the fact that I'm actually in love with this Joker performance. Because I actually really liked it. Not only for this, but for the deleted scene. I don't know if y'all saw that, but the deleted scene has been released online, which actually features him more prominently and has him talking to Batman. So we see and the person who's playing him is Barry Keoghan. He played Druig in the Eternals movie. That's the only other thing I've seen him in.
He was in Chernobyl. He was in Dunkirk.
Yeah.
He's a good actor.
Yeah, he's a good actor. And so like his whole vibe they're going for is that they're just going for a full on like serial killer vibe. Like he's got a whole mangled look and he's always smiling. And I'm not the biggest fan of the look, but the performance seems to carry it. Similar to like Robert Pattinson Batman and Riddler, where I'm not really a fan of the aesthetic, but the actors carry the performances well enough. All I'll say is, don't fuck this up. Like, he'll probably be in a sequel.
Oh, fuck it up.
Yeah, he'll probably be in a sequel or a spinoff or something. Just more than Batman. This guy is a very, 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 very difficult to get right. So I'm not even, like, mad at the movie. I'm just cautiously telling it, don't fuck this up. Please.
I do really like the Hannibal Lecter type thing that the deleted scene had going for it, though.
Yeah, that was cool.
I thought that was cool. I mean, it didn't have to be Joker.
Mm-hmm.
I like the Hannibal Lecter kind of go to a villain to talk about a villain.
Mm-hmm.
They did this in Titans season 3 with Scarecrow. Not very good. Sorry, they did the same thing but with Scarecrow instead of Joker. But I think the Joker one worked better from the one deleted scene we had.
Okay, but yeah. Long story
All right,
short, I won't lay into him too much because we haven't seen any of him yet. But yeah, that's just kind of a warning for the future. Now I want to get into my main point, which is that the moment I actually came to appreciate this movie is at the end where Batman at the beginning of this movie was beating up criminals. He said, "I'm vengeance" or whatever. At the end of this movie, when Riddler has gone full crazy and flooded the city, and his followers are attacking people. Batman shows up to fight them, blah, blah, blah. They unmask one of Riddler's goons, to which they ask him who he is, and he says, "I'm vengeance." And I was like, well, because this makes the thesis of the movie. This movie is exposing the flaws in at least this Batman's approach, that Batman's seeking vengeance is a bad thing. He's the movie's a lesson about what happens when ideologies or motives get warped by people with less good intentions, and how you have to be wary of what happens. But yeah,
it's to kind of, I guess, not sum it up, but it's a very unique way of, and he directly says it. He goes, "Vengeance won't change the past. I need to become more." It is probably the best thing I've ever seen a Batman movie do.
Yeah,
It's a great simplistic arc.
Mm-hmm. I don't want to say, you say simplistic, but I think for Batman specifically, that's actually very
No,
important.
but I mean, it's the obvious answer.
Ah, yes.
Which is why he comes about it at the end.
Yeah. And so I like that approach, how he's not going to be vengeance, but instead more so justice and peace and compassion. This is literally represented by him, falling into the water for rebirth and leading the others with the light, which is a pretty cool shot. But yeah, the movie's pretty clear about where it wants to go with that. Because I think it's great that this movie actually addressed how it's not just as much as we like Batman being violent and edgy and cool, that's not how you solve problems in Gotham like this. It's willing to address that violence isn't simply the answer, that Batman's where he's coming from, being all privileged all his life, that he needs help from others who have different outlooks from him, even whether they be Catwoman or even a simple cop like Martinez. It's willing to make... I like that the Riddler purposely actually was a fan of the Batman. That was a twist I didn't see coming, where the whole movie sets it up that it seems like he's kind of taunting him, but it turns out he was trying to basically message him to be on his side, and he thought Batman's whole evil or vengeance crusade was actually on his side. He didn't even realize Bruce Wayne was Batman, and thought that they were just working together to get rid of the evil elites. And it just goes to show how Batman, like, simply trying to scare everyone is going to give the wrong idea to the wrong people. And how there's a better way to go about it. Now, that being said, I don't know what that way will be. We'll find out in a sequel or a spinoff. So this is only the beginning. The movie could drop the ball. I hope it doesn't in the future. I have high hopes. And I hope
I like that they adopted the hero creates their own villains type thing.
Yeah.
I thought that was really cool. So just exactly what you're talking about. Spider-Man does that a lot, and I like that they took it into the Batman.
Mm-hmm. So I will see like where they go with that. And I say that because this is a full-on franchise now. We already have confirmed a spin-off series about Penguin, a spin-off about it was going to be a spin-off about the police department, but now it's a spin-off about Arkham Asylum, and a sequel that will
sounds cooler.
Yeah, and a sequel that might feature...
I don't need any propaganda in my life, I'm going to be honest with you.
R.I.P.
I like how they did Arkham in this movie. Like, it felt like a living, breathing city.
Yeah.
It was actually really nice.
Yeah, in addition, like, we're going to get at least a sequel film that will probably feature Mr. Freeze as the antagonist, which sounds interesting,
Maybe.
all things considered. I'd actually like to see that. And
No Court of Owls, no Joker. Two of the most
people-
oversaturated, lame Batman
everyone
villains.
wants to see Court of Owls and Joker. They will show up at some point.
They're so lame.
The
I
thing with
imagine
Court of Owls is they
so
kind
lame.
of already did the Gotham corruption thing in this movie.
Yeah. They'll probably put Joker in like the Arkham Asylum show, I imagine. And who knows, maybe we'll hit the Court of Owls in the end or something. I hope not. They're already going to be in the Gotham Knights video game, so I don't feel like you need that overlap. But yeah.
Alrighty.
Either way, with all that being said, my last joke is I love how we're continuing the trend of Batman not acting like he doesn't like to kill. Because if you remember this, I bring up the shot from like the Batmobile scene, the chase scene, where he just straight up like obliterates Riddler's car at the end after he like jumps through the fire, and I'm like, that easily could have killed him. Like, this is kind of a meme. It's a meme where like it's especially in like the Dark Knight trilogy, where his tank is just crashing into people and you're surprised it's not killing them. And I'm like, come on, man. If you have a no-kill rule, act like it. But yeah, that's always just been a funny meme to me. How Batman doesn't act like he has a no-kill rule, and you wouldn't know unless he deliberately said it. But yeah, in conclusion, to wrap up, all right.
Good movie.
Yeah, both good movies for their own reasons. All right. And I think that the important through line here is that like they're both movies that are bold enough to critique Batman in their own ways, at least. Like the Lego Batman movie takes a more lighthearted, like parody approach to it, and the Batman takes a more deliberate, like dark approach to it because they're like complete opposite sides of the age rating spectrum. And I think it's good because like just like how Batman's oversaturated in media, he kind of gets a lot of bias from people, because I have a lot of problems with like the Batman mythos. I have a lot of problems with a lot of superhero mythos, but especially Batman, that a lot of people either like don't realize or just don't want to address because they like the character. And I won't get into it here. I already have like essays prepared for that in like different videos, but long story short, I'm glad they're actually willing to like address some flaws. Even if they do inadvertently reinstate some other flaws that I have with Batman, the movies overall are willing to actually critique the character and try to find a better way to make him. Because if we're going to keep getting Batman stories, you might as well get rid of the flaws that nobody likes to talk about in them. At least that's what I would say. And yeah, so in addition to being good movies, they're good movies that critique the meta mythos and work from that. And that, I guess, would be our podcast. Recommendations? Well, let's end on some recommendations of media. Just like
Green, 1996,
Morbius.
one of the greatest horror movies ever.
Morbius and Twilight.
Okay.
No.
Jay, go first.
You go.
Jay, go first. What's your recommendation?
I think we should do just like with this one, but the two movies are Morbius and Twilight. That's all.
I mean, recommendations for movies you like. Like, not do you want to cover. Like, legit like.
Morbius is a movie I really like.
Oh, boy. Okay. Triple M.
Scream, 1996, one of my favorite movies ever made. Just go watch it. It's really good. Don't look up anything regarding to the plot. You'll get it spoiled for you. Just go watch it.
All right. Galactic Blame.
Do we have anything right now? I'm kind of too busy, like,
Just
watching.
anything you like. Just anything.
I do, like,
I'm not watching anything right now.
Not even right now. It can just be any movie you've ever liked.
I don't know.
You've never liked a movie ever.
But, I mean, honestly, I'm more of a TV person.
Okay,
anyway.
well, a TV show then. I don't know.
Oh my god. Okay. I don't know. I think I said it in Succession, I guess, is really good. You guys should check that out. Okay.
Okay.
An actual movie recommendation. Sorry about the Morbius thing. Was I'd have to say 10 Things I Hate About You from 1999.
Nice. And my recommendation, I guess, then would be The Batman. 2004. Yeah, that cartoon. Specifically the episode, season 2, episode 2, Riddled, because, it's about the Riddler. So it's like, important to this episode. But in all seriousness, it's a pretty good episode. The show as a whole is like a more unique take on Batman in its own way. Similar to this movie, similar to the Batman movie. Like, it's a younger Batman. Like, instead of being year 2 in the show, he's year 3. Later in the show, he'll get allies like Robin, Batgirl, the Justice League, but it focuses on like new, fresher takes on his villains. Like Poison Ivy's younger and Batgirl's friend. Mr. Freeze looks like Vilgax from Ben 10. The Joker, he's very like controversial design for the Joker in that show, but they made him like a hulking brute with a deep voice and long Jamaican hair, and I actually really like it how they did him in that.
Also, the intro, it just goes so hard for that show.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love both the intros. But yeah, that's my recommendation. And that was our show. Hope you liked it. Never expect us to cover superheroes again because I hate them. Ha ha ha. No, I'm just kidding. But we'll probably not cover superhero media again because it's a bit too saturated and obvious.
Except Morbius.
We will. Morbius. Don't be that guy.
We probably will anyways, of course. But yeah.
All right.
Thank you for listening.
Signing off.
All right.
Thanks
Goodbye, everyone.
Everybody, bye.